What's going on, guys? G2 here. Welcome back to the bench, and today we're going to be camouflaging our 308 here. So this was our build that we did. First thing that we had to do was take all of the moving components out of it. So all we have here at this point is our upper and lower receiver, our stock, and then we have here our foregrip. Everything else was taken out. The barrel, you don't want to paint on the barrel because of the heat from the barrel. It will melt the paint, it'll let off an odor, and it's just not good. All the other parts you can see are taken out. The buffer's out, the trigger, the gas block, forward assist, the muzzle brake, the mag release, the safety. All of those things have been taken out of this. So all we have now is basically a shell. The grip is up to you whether or not you want to paint that or not, as well as the stock. You could always take these two off and then just leave it your three main components here. That's your choice. Let me see here. Nothing is inside of this. Because I took the safety out, obviously our rear takedown pin is no longer in there, but we will use this to keep this from coming undone. Now, what you're going to need, like I said before in my preview video, we're going to rattle can this. And I know there's probably a lot of you right now who just rolled your eyes and said, oh my God, rattle can. I have a paint bin over there, or a paint, whatever you want to call it, where I do my Cerakote and where I do my Duracoat. And as much as I love that, personally, I really love the look of rattle can. I like the way it wears. I like the fact that it can be changed. So for me, Cerakote and Duracoat are great options, but I think that the rattle can is just, it's a personal preference. Roll your eyes, don't roll your eyes, it doesn't matter, but I'm going to show you the right way to do it, because if you do it right and you take your time in your prep, it turns out just as good, if not better, than Cerakote or Duracoat. Now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going for a pattern that's similar to this right here, so like a multicam. However, being that the base of the gun is black, I do want to have some black in here as well. So it's going to be a little variation on it. We're not going for exacts here, but we're going for the overall idea, I guess you could say. So what you're going to need, obviously, your color. So we have here a dark OD green, we have a lighter green, we have a brown, we have a tan, and we have kind of an FDE. Now all those five combined with black, which the rifle already is now, will comprise the six main colors that we will use to do this. I will not do it in a white, even though multicam sometimes will have a white on it. I've opted to go for this really large, this light tan, as opposed to the white. Okay, so you're going to need your spray paint, whatever colors you want to do. You're going to need some kind of decal or pattern for you. What we have here, these are from Penguin Tactical. These are vinyl decals that we're going to put on to get our pattern. You're going to need latex gloves, and you're going to need a lot of them. I would say get a box of 50, because you're going to go through these like crazy, because the first part of doing this right is the prep. In order for your whatever it is, spray paint, Duracoat, Cerakote, to get good adhesion, you need to make sure that the entire rifle is degreased. And once it's degreased, you cannot touch this with your hands. You will cross-contaminate and you will ruin everything that you just did. A little bit of oil on this will ruin your paint job. It will peel off, it'll start to wear unevenly or prematurely. So make sure that you do your due diligence and degrease the entire thing. Also, this is what I use. I go to the auto store, I get brake parts cleaner. This is a an alcohol-based product that is fantastic for degreasing. I'll use that first to degrease everything, and then what I'll do is I'll take the plastic parts off of this, and then I'll set this in the oven for about, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so at about 200 degrees. And what that will do will bring to the surface any oil that I missed, and then I'll go ahead and degrease it again. I cannot stress how important it is to make sure you're degreasing before you even start this. If you're not going to do this part, you're going to end up with a bad looking product, and you know what you're going to blame? The spray paint. You're going to say rattle can sucks. Of course it came out like shit because you didn't do your preparation. So spray the whole thing over, let it air dry, spray it over again. Use a brand new clean microfiber cloth. Go to the auto store when you're getting your brake parts cleaner and get a pack of these. You are going to go through these. You do not want to use the same one over. Once you've degreased and you've wiped down, throw this away or do not use this on this project anymore. The grease that you're going to be taking up needs to be gone altogether. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take this off screen. I'm going to thoroughly degrease this. I'm going to let it set out in the garage, dry off. I'm going to hang it while I'm doing this. Right by here, hang it from a wire from the rafter, and just spray this baby down, let it degrease, wipe it down, do it again, wipe it down, put it in the oven. Make sure you take the plastic parts off before you put it in the oven. Even though at 200 degrees these should be okay. Better safe than sorry. And then we're going to let it sit in the oven for about 30 minutes, let it cool all the way down in the oven. Once it's out, we're going to inspect and make sure that in these little cracks and crevices here, all of that grease is gone. And once that's done, you know, we're going to do it one more time and let it dry thoroughly all the way through. And then, and only then, are you ready to start to apply your pattern. So we will be right back with our fully degreased frame ready for patterning. Okay, so I wanted to show you here what I meant by hanging it. So we're going to hang it here, and we've got it so we can access all sides of it here, right? And then what we're going to do is we're just going to spray this down using our brake parts cleaner, and we're just going to let it air dry, and we're going to do that cycle twice, and then we're going to wipe it down. Okay, so now we have had this degreased, and once you have degreased that, from this point forward, your hands should be covered and protected at all times. You should not be touching this with your bare hands. So what we're going to do at this point is we're going to wipe off all of the residue. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now, as one more fail-safe, you can see I put this on a newspaper just to ensure that I clean on this so there could be grease, there could be particulates on there. So just to have another layer of protection here, I put this newspaper down. It's going to soak up any grease that's going to go into it, which at this point should be none. If anything, it's going to soak up whatever's on the bottom and bring it up. So for one last thing, we're going to hit this with some air from the compressor just to make sure everything is out and this is totally clean. Okay, so this looks pretty good. Now, if I can show you here, you will, if you use this method, there will be, you can kind of see that blotching and spotting. That's totally fine. It's okay. When you go back and you clean this and you put your layer of oil over top of this, all of that blotchiness will be gone. That's just the metal, the oil that's in the metal. It's fine, don't worry about it, you didn't mess anything up. Some parkerizings are different, so you can see here on the upper, totally fine, right? The handguard here, which is most likely probably a different type of aluminum, this is a 70, 75, this may be a 60, 61, or 70, 71, 60, 65, I can't remember, but they react a little bit differently. It's totally fine, you'll be able to fix that, don't worry about that now. So now we're done. So what we can do is we can apply our decals. Now when you're applying your decals, this is really personal preference. However you want to do this is up to you. There's no wrong way. This is your rifle, you do it as you wish. Just remember that the way that the decals work, whatever you're placing it over is the color that it's going to be. This is kind of a it's a reverse decal. It's not, you're using the male parts, not the female, so whatever you're covering is the color that you're going to get. So at this point, if you wanted a primarily black rifle, you're going to cover more of this than not, and then you're going to continue, you're going to cover it with whatever you want to be black, you're going to spray it with your next color, and then you're going to do that with whichever color you want that to be, and then spray, apply decal, spray, apply decal, spray, apply decal until you're done. So the final color is most likely going to be your lightest color. For our first color is going to be black. Now we want this to primarily be, I would say, if we were going to select a percentage, about 15% black, and then we're going to go into all the other colors equally. So there'll be about 8%. So let's go and pick some decals here, and we're going to decal this with what we want to be black. We've just finished our black cover. Now everything that you see here that's in yellow will now be in black. When you're doing this, don't forget, hold on, about the bottom, okay? Make sure you just don't, it looks symmetrical, so don't forget about the bottom. Try to look on either side. Does this yellow match the amount of that yellow to give you a good balance? And then finally, don't forget about the top. The rails, not really necessary, obviously, because optics are going to be on here. You won't have to worry about them. You'll see that I took this off, and as I was putting the decals on here, they weren't getting really good adhesion. So I think I'm just going to keep this plain black, and that's going to be it. Now finally, I had to manufacture a little bit of a sticker here because this is the serial number and I don't want to cover that up. It's not engraved, it's electrically etched on there, so as we paint it will get covered, so make sure that that is open and available and covered, so that you don't cover up your serial number. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to go and we're going to put our first coat of paint on. Make sure that you have shaken this for at least 5 minutes. If your hand is not exhausted, you haven't shaken it enough. Also, it's good to get it started by putting it under, and then just making sure that you get good flow. Now, when you're painting this, you're gonna start up here and paint all the way down to the bottom. Don't start in the middle of the project. Start on the top and work your way all the way down like so. And you're just gonna go light strokes like that. Until it's covered. Don't go heavy. It's better to do 2 and 3 coats than to do 1 heavy coat. it's just going to end up with a mess product. So we're going to continue with light coats on this until we get pretty good coverage. You don't need 100% coverage because you're going to be doing other colors on top of this. So just bear that in mind. I did about 2 coats, pretty light, with about a 5-minute drying time in between. This is about all you're going to need to do. Remember, the next coat that's going on is green, and then we have another lighter color, and then another color, and then another color. So you don't want to make this too thick, or what's going to happen is you're going to see there's going to be layers kind of as you peel these off, and you don't want to have layers where you can feel where the stencil was. So we're going to let this dry for a good probably 45 minutes to an hour until it is 100% dry, and then we're going to go and stencil, and we're going to do the next color. I should also note one more thing. You're done with these. Throw them out and get a new pair. Alrighty, so the brown is dry. I actually gave this about 2 hours to dry off. And we got our new gloves, and what we're going to do is we're going to place over top here the parts that we want brown. Now, I don't want a lot of brown. This is going to be really, we're going to be doing these as accents more so than anything else. So I want my primary colors really to be black, olive drab, and FDE. The brown and this light army green are going to be kind of highlight colors. So we're not going to be using nearly as many stickers for this portion of it. So let's just dive into it here and just get some nice brown accents in here. The other thing I should add is when you're using a pattern like this, directionality doesn't really matter, but if you were doing something like a digital, you want to make sure that your pattern is all running either horizontally or vertically. One of the easy parts about this multicam is it doesn't really matter which side, or I guess what's the orientation of the actual sticker. Because it is a randomized pattern anyway. Okay, so we have finished all of our applications of decals and we're on to our final color. This is going to be our finishing color. It is the FDE. We switched things up a little bit on how we wanted to finish, but this is going to be the coat that you take the most time on. You're going to go light coats, probably about 3 or 4 times, with ample drying time in between. Make sure that when you're doing this, you're spraying not only this way and up and down, but you're also coming from an angle up on both ways. This will allow you to get in those little crevices, those under spots, and then of course you're going to do it this way as well to ensure total coverage. Take your time on this. 3 or 4 coats should be good. Light coats, do not go heavy. If you start to see streaking or dripping, you're putting too much on. After this, we're taking the decals off and we're going to see our final result. So we have totally covered this in our FDE. We are ready to take the stickers off, but there is one more thing that I want to do before we get into this, and you can see here the importance of degreasing. Now, I thought I did a fantastic job here degreasing, but there are always going to be, you can see right here, a little bit of grease that has come out probably from the spring in the rod where the dust cover is, and then also here there's always going to be a little bit. But the most important part is that didn't bleed until after all of the paint had dried. So it's not going to make a big difference for us here, but it's always good. This is why you do your due diligence and you do your degreasing thoroughly, because if this had happened during the painting process, it would be disastrous. Now, the one last thing I want to do here, we have a great matte finish on this. is I want to have a little bit of highlighted texture. Now, if you've seen some of my other paint jobs, this one for example, it has kind of that snake skin pattern to it. It's really nice. I like it. It's a little different, breaks it up. So what we're going to do is we're going to do something similar with this. Now, this is what I use. I went to Walmart. I got a mesh laundry duffel bag. So we're going to open this guy up, and I'm going to show you how we're going to convert this. So what we're going to use is this right here, the mesh part. So we can cut this off, basically take off all of the junk, so all we have is the mesh. Now, you can get these, you know, in Target, Walmart, whatever, different sizes of mesh. I like the bigger one. That's just my preference, the kind of thicker mesh as opposed to the thinner. And then what you're going to do is we're going to lay this on. Once we get it all done, you want to have it as one layer, you know, we don't want to have it doubled up. So let me clean this up, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how we're going to get that cool snakeskin pattern on there. So through the magic of television, we have our net completely taken out here. You can see it's just a straight up net. Now, if you have a fishing supply or hunting supply store where fishing net will work, it all depends kind of what and how big you want your pattern to be and what you want it to look like. So the overall idea is this. There's a couple ways you can go about doing this depending on what you want your result to look like. You could go with one shade darker. So if I had a shade darker of the FDE, you could use that, and that would bring it kind of as a highlight texture. You could go one shade lighter, which would make it a low light because your lighter texture would be popping up. Or you can go with what I'm going to do with it, which is a clear. This is a clear flat spray paint, and we're going to do this, and it's when you do this, you're going to go in basically just stripes, just like this, just quick X's across. You don't want to really focus in on it. It's just a quick, you start spraying up here and you go over, and you start spraying up here and you go over, and you start spraying up here and you go over. And then if you want to go diagonal, you can do that as well, the opposite way, and you'll end up with this snakeskin pattern, which looks really awesome. The tricks are, make sure, we're not obviously going to do this on the thing here, we're going to hang it up, but make sure that your net is tight to your piece. Actually, we're not going to hang this up, we're going to put this on a piece of cardboard outside. Make sure that your net is tight to the piece, because gaps will make the, if you have too much space in between here and your product or your piece, it's going to give you not as detailed as a pattern image as you would want. So we're going to set this up. We're going to do it real quick. I'll show you that, and let me go set it up. All right, so we have this set up on our piece here. You can see it's nice and tight to the piece. We don't have any gaps. We have our paint here all shaken up, ready to go. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go even stripes across, and then we're going to go another way, or whatever pattern you want to do, however you want to do it. And then as soon as you're done, don't let it sit. You take it off and then you hang it to dry, and that will, we're going to flip it over once it's dry and do the other side. So let's get this going, and we're just going to go like this. The great thing about this is reusable. You can use this as many times as you want, and it actually gets better the more you use it, because there gets a little bit of rigidity to it. So we're just going to go like that, like that. And this is it. And that's all we're gonna do. And then we're gonna take this off gently. We don't want to smear. And you can already see, if you look here, there's a slight pattern that will only show really in the sunlight. But once you take all those other stickers off, it's going to be really cool because it's going to look like it's going underneath of the pattern and coming back out. So let's hang this up, let it dry, and then we'll do the other side. Alright, so now that everything has dried, we can finally get to seeing how this pattern turned out. It's up until this point, we're kind of going with what we thought we were going to do. So now we get to see the final results. Now when you're taking these stickers off, make sure that you're wearing your gloves. A pair of tweezers helps tremendously. If you don't have tweezers, a fine tipped razor will work as well to help you get them started. I suggest to work in one side from the back to the front or the front to the back. Remember, we probably put close to 200 decals on here, but you don't want to miss any. So let's just get started here. Let's take some off, and we'll go along and see kind of how we did. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to take a good portion of these off. I'm not going to video this because this process could take it's probably going to take me about 2 hours to get all of these off. But we will see the reveal when we're done. So it did not take nearly as long as I thought to get all of these stickers off. Maybe about 30 minutes or so. Once I started going, kind of got right into it. I don't think I missed any. I gave this a couple good looks over just to make sure we got them all, but you can see here as the final result looks pretty good. You've got your black, your brown, your olive drab, you've got your lighter green in here. The really light FDE didn't show up as nearly as much as I would like. You can kind of see little spots here, but that's okay. Overall, I'm really happy with this result. Let's flip it over here so you can see the other side. And it has a nice texturing to it. You can kind of see here that snake pattern that we had. It's very, very kind of subdued, which is cool. I like it. And the last thing that we're going to do here is once you're done, you'll feel that there's a little bit of a texture on this just from the spray patterns and whatnot. And what you can do is get one of your extra microfiber cloths and just wipe gently, and it'll almost polish this to get that extra, any kind of paint residue that's on there, raised high spots. I'm just giving this a nice, we're not using any kind of solvent or cleaner or anything with this. We're just using the abrasive of the microfiber, which is extremely light, to knock off anything here, and it feels like that compared to this, it definitely does what we're trying to do here. I wouldn't suggest going with anything more abrasive than this, like a very high grit sandpaper. I wouldn't do that. Just do the microfiber and keep rubbing it and wiping it off, and you'll see that the more you do it, the more it'll knock that down and get it to a really nice smooth finish. You can already see, if I show you these two sides here, so look at this, how it has a nice polished edge, and then kind of here, this is a little bit more subdued. together. Specifically look at the black. So that's black right here, and that's black right here. You can see the difference between the two. It's not the light. I'll put it where that part is. So just continue to rub that off, and what we're going to do next is we are going to put our parts kit back in once we get all this wiped off. So I'm going to wipe this off screen, and we're going to put our parts kit back in. Now, disclaimer, because of the spray that we put in, some of your parts are going to be a little tighter than they normally were. Now, for the next part, when we put our parts kit in, we are going to need to take some of this paint away in certain instances. We may need to take it away in the safety hole, in the mag release hole. We may need to take some off here in the bolt catch release. So just a disclaimer here before we go into that next part. So we have everything put back together, everything is operational, and yeah, I really like how this turns out. What do you guys think? I mean, I think this is pretty sharp, and I mean, for how much we paid for this paint job to get done, yeah, it took us a little bit of extra time, about a week all in all, working on it you know, an hour or an hour and a half every night. Probably more like 45 minutes to an hour every night just to do the stickers, do the different coats, and then it took about an hour to put it back together, including the upper as well, because you got to remember the barrel was not installed, so I just had to install the barrel and all that. The only thing that I don't have on here yet are my sights, optic, and then a muzzle device. I don't know what I'm going to put on it. I've got a couple options. I've got a 3-prong, I've got a bird cage, not quite sure yet, so I'm going to leave that to the end, really, when I'm find something I like. But like I said, the grip was taken off in the middle of the project because you see how the texturing was a little bit off here. It's still good, but it's not as clear as it is here. That's just because of the texturing of the stock. That texturing will cause the pattern to not be as clear. So when you're trying to do something like a mag pull grip that has texturing everywhere, it was just going to come out looking bad. So I prefer looking like this. I can always get a FDE grip and put that on there, and it'll look pretty good. Actually, I think I have one. So yeah, I totally forgot. I got a FD handguard and a vertical foregrip. So yeah, I mean, honestly, all we need left to finish this up is some rear and front sights, and optic, and then a muzzle device. So guys, let me know, are you going to try this method out? I know there's a little bit of conversation, let's call it to be nice, on how well this holds up. Personally, I don't want my camo to hold up 100%. I like when I use it, it gets worn, it gets faded. You can see where you're holding the gun, you can see where you're manipulating the buttons. All those things to me just show like a weapon that's being used, as opposed to something that, yeah, I could just do this like this and just hang it on the wall, and when all my friends come, be like, oh yeah, that's cool, yeah, and it'll never get used. What's the point of having a gun if you're not using it? If you just want show guns, yeah, show gun. If you just want wall guns, just go to Toys R Us and get some plastic guns and paint them up, okay? But if you're really going to use a fully functional weapon, be prepared to have wear and tear on your weapon. It's just the way it's going to work. So, rattle can for me, the cheapest, efficient, and honestly, it looks freaking great. For not paying, you know, $700-800 for a Cerakote job, I'll take it. You can do this. About $14 for the decals, about $20 for the paint, $34, you're all in. Maybe if you don't have these, it'll cost you another $5 at Harbor Freight. Go ahead, do it. If you're feeling nervous, this is my biggest, I would say, if I have any advice for anyone who's going to do this, if you're feeling nervous about how it's going to turn out, try it on a toy. Go to Toys R Us, get one of those cheap, whatever, $5 AR-15s, and practice on it. Practice your patterning, practice your spraying. It'll cost you nothing, and you'll be able to see exactly what the results are going to look like, so you're not surprised when you're peeling away those stickers. All right, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, practice safe firearms handling at all time. Treat every weapon as if it was loaded. God bless America. G2 out.